Every morning you wake up, you have an opportunity to try something different. If, showing your kids compassion and talking about what that provides to your community, you will make that happen. You will provide that strategy in your life for your kids.
Hello, and welcome to the Connect podcast. This show is all about helping you connect to your soul's calling so you can take action on it. Because the sweetest success is a blend of discovering your purpose with the inner drive to bring it to life. I'm Sheila Botello, health coach, lifestyle entrepreneur, and mom of two, best known for my online wellness programs, mentoring, and self-love passion. Listen in for inspiring interviews, solo chats, and Q&A sessions that will move you past overwhelm towards what lights you up. Stop accepting good enough and go for your version of great in your health, business, and relationships. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Interview Day on the podcast. Julianne Bosch is a mother to 3 children, a former expat wife, and a career and life coach to mom executives who now lives coast to coast from San Diego to Sarasota. In 2021, she decided that after moving back to the United States from Ireland, she needed a new career. That's when she became a professional career and life coach, practicing with clients virtually via Zoom. She gets the best of both worlds, having a job that's extremely fulfilling and traveling with her partner of 28 years. After moving multiple times on 4 continents, she took the scratched notes of her life to create a journal called How a Mother Took Her First Step on the Moon, a mother's keepsake journal of advice to my children. What began as a 50th birthday quest and a gift to her children instead of receiving gifts became a collection of uplifting true stories and an empowering workbook for parents. Julianne's passionate about helping young mothers create work-life balance. There were so many synchronicities in our conversation and stories that you'll love. Enjoy. Julianne, thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to have this conversation. We've had this in the works for a few months.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here and have time to just chat with you.
I will have shared your intro prior to our conversation, telling the world about what you do and how you came to where you are currently working. And one thing that you mentioned to me was when we first met, synchronicity rules my life. And I'm so curious, that has stayed with me because I love synchronicity. And I really look back and I see how many times that has been the case for me as well. And I wonder, has this always been the case for you? And can you point to times in your past where you saw it happening in the moment? Or is this just something you gained an awareness of later in life, of like seeing it happening and then looking back and recognizing that that's what was happening?
I believe I had a lot more awareness as I got older. I think with time, you appreciate it more. I was in the crux of making things happen. And I'd be like, aha, aha, aha. That would happen throughout. But I don't think I would give it the gratefulness as I do now. I hit the milestone birthday, and I think it just makes me pause and reflect a lot more now about synchronicity and how magical it is and how it pulls off and time again if you let it happen. Sometimes we talked about karma and the universe and how all of those things spin. And when you step back with gratitude for it and appreciation, then it comes into play. And I think it's from maturity, looking back, definitely.
I identify with so much of what you just said, that looking back and seeing it, because I had a conversation with a friend recently and she was asking me some questions and it got me thinking about my past. And I'm like, yes, certain things have just happened in such a way that I can see now that there was a lot of synchronicity happening and that I didn't make it happen. I attracted it to me. It's very, very interesting to look back with that. And then also in the summer, I celebrated the 50 milestone birthday as well. So yay, 50s, here we are. And it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, right?
Yes.
How did you celebrate when you did hit 50?
I was fortunate that my husband and I travel with him now. And that has been kind of our crux for this year, is just that we're spending more time together. And he had work in Dallas. So I thought, oh, this will just be lovely. He'll work during the day and at night we'll go and have a really nice dinner, because um, we kind of put all of our gold in one pot and we're taking our children for the holidays to Peru. It was something I really wanted to do to go hike Machu Picchu. So
Yeah.
that was my birthday gift per se, and their Christmas and all of that. So I wasn't really expecting anything. And my children had, over a course of 5 or 6 months, had collected letters and cards from everyone in my life. And this beautiful box arrived at the hotel on my birthday. And I was able to get to open all of these cards. And I spent a good 2 hours crying and, oh my God, I can't believe they remembered me. And so that was a beautiful gift. It was just simple cards of my life for 50 years. And then, like I told you, how you and I met was to kind of cement it. I wanted to give a gift to my children instead of getting gifts. And so I wrote a book that I put out into the world and I published on my 50th birthday called How a Mother Took Her First Step on the Moon. And it's pieces of my advice. I don't want mothers to look at it and go, do this, but it's a framework and an availability for them to look at somebody's journey and their advice and give you a piece of advice and then ask you to journal about it and write your intentions, because it just sparks your neural pathways to think differently and write it on paper. Because I think as moms, if we have a framework, it holds you in place. And it says when things come at you, I may sway a little bit, but at least I know what my grounding is. And I'm able to kind of like look back at that journal and say, this is what I believe in about integrity. These are my values. These are my beliefs. And I think it's pretty basic. The book is very basic, but I think after what the world has been and the chaos, coming back to the basics was much needed for my 50th birthday. And I hope I put that out into the world in that book.
I wholeheartedly agree. The power and the transformation lies in the simplicity. We can get very, very complex in our minds and it stops us completely. But being able to sit with some simple questions and prompts in a journal can take us really far. It can reveal so much to us. I love that you did that. And then that was your gift to your kids and to the greater audience of the world. I hope that goes far and wide.
It has. And I've been pleasantly surprised at the feedback has been glorious. I've been given advice. For example, a grandmother reached out to me and she said, I don't have any grandchildren yet, but your book sparked something in your ability to write memories. And so she created an email account to her unborn grandchildren and she started writing her memories from that book, just so she documents her scratch notes, is what I called those stories, is scratch notes. So she documented her moments so that if something was to happen and she isn't around, for example, she said, when I got in a car accident, I wrote out exactly what happened and what I did and what I was thinking so that this child had a little time capsule of memories from me. And what a beautiful thing. If that's all that this does is just spark a little bit of a mark for people to capture what is important for their legacy, then it hit it on the head, and it keeps giving back to me because now I'm getting more and more advice.
Oh, I love that. That's incredible. And so you're traveling with your husband. You've been living all over the world when you've been together.
Yes.
His work. And when you were younger in your life, did you imagine that you would travel so much? Like, is that something that you made happen without knowing it? Or was it a surprise to you?
I was a Navy brat. So my father always, when there was an opportunity, he was in the Navy, he would always kind of bring me along. When I was young, I went to Korea with my dad and my mom. And I did a little bit of kind of those exotic trips through the military. But then I married my husband and it had nothing to do with the military. We met in graduate school in an international business school called Thunderbird, getting our master's. And the premonition is yes, I wanted that travel in my life because I love to explore new cultures and understand religions and food and why people did the practices that they did. So yes, I think it was in my blood, but I didn't mean to blow it up so much in these 27 years of traveling 4 continents, moving 13 times. I had no clue that that's what this would lead me to, but I've enjoyed every moment of it.
I love that. And so as a result, what was the dynamic of your family and your marriage as you navigated living all over the world?
Um, Something that I am super proud of and grateful for is the 5 of us are a strong unit. The communication skills are massive. If there is a problem, we all come to the table and hash it out. And there are tears and screaming, and there's a lot of emotions. But the 5 of us as a unit, if something was to happen to one of us, you will go on, and that is the greatest gift you can give your kids is the tools to succeed on their own.
Yes.
So that's what I've kind of pulled away from it is we became such a tight knit unit of dependency on each other that even though we're all over the United States now, because my children are adults, we process things together and we try to do it with healthy perspectives and say, what if this or that, and unfortunately, I didn't have that growing up. And now as I'm getting older, my mother's in her 80s and my father's passed away. But now we're doing that because of some of the things I've learned, that you have to create that space and you have to allow those conversations. And sometimes they're not fun, but it's much needed because, again, going back to that chaos of the world, it's getting back to the basics and what's important. And if I don't walk the walk, then how do I want my children to do it? So I think that's what I took away from all these experiences is that tight weave that we created from it.
Oh, I love that. And that is something that I have tried with my husband to really instill in our family as well. So it's so beautiful hearing it. I have a few other friends who I've seen it and people I've admired from afar as well who seem to have that cohesiveness in their family. And it just gives me so much hope because it shows that when you're intentional about bringing something to life, it truly is possible for it to happen. And when you're doing it with love and kindness and respect for each other, because that sounds like that's the theme that I see with you and with others as well. It's not like, this is how we're doing it. It's like everybody wants to, there's an enrollment of everyone's desire to make that happen.
Yes. And I think, the world is changing. The way our children are doing things are very different than the way we are.
Right.
So bring those discussions to your table and say, okay, these are our values as a family. And how does that align? And it could be social media. It could be eating as a family. It could be bringing in a boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be volunteering in your community. And it's surprising as we age how it flips and your children start teaching you things and saying, open your mind to this, read this book, experience this with me so that you're more informed and not with judgment of, oh gosh, mom's so outdated or dad's like not understanding what, this new way of the world is. It's let me bring you along with it. And I don't think that was something that I thought possible as a child. We had kind of background noises about what you thought your parents thought about things. And now I want them, I think you and I spoke about, I want my home to be the safety zone. I want them to know that that's where the soft landing is. It's always there. Food, shelter, and love is always here for you. And I think, when your child knows that, they can conquer anything else. Yes, those things will come at them and you have to process them. Life is not easy. It's not meant to be, or else we wouldn't have these life lessons. But when they have that backbone and that framework, it sure makes them navigate it. And as a parent, I have so much pride now. Today, my daughter started teaching in Brooklyn, special education Spanish. Never in my mind would I have thought she would be in New York doing something like this, but she wants to change and be innovative in how the public school system is. And that started from the spark of how she was in schools all over the world. And she's grabbing for her toolbox to make home stronger. Like if she sees that in our public school system, that we need this innovation for teachers so that we're not losing one of the most important occupations in the United States for our children, and making it fun is such I don't know, my heart fills with that right now. And like, wow, she's going to do something amazing. And I step back a little bit and say, if we all thought that the kids that were in our house were the next Nobel Prize winners or the next great scientists or the next teachers of something grand that was never been experienced, or technology guru, I mean, wouldn't you cradle and think about the way you process your child when the dumb and silly things happen? You'd be like, okay, if this is a Nobel Prize winner, let's learn from this and build from it. And so I think that is kind of, as you said in my first question, looking back is to be able to now see how all that synchronicity has lined up to have them achieve greatness without forcing it or pushing them to do that.
Oh, that just gave me chills, because yeah, that idea of looking at who your children can be, the adults, the innovators, the people making great change in the world and leaving their mark, and not just being in the moment with the stuff, right?
Yeah.
The childish behavior. Gee, they're children. Maybe they're supposed to be acting childish from time to time. And isn't it, I find for myself, isn't it in the silliness that sometimes the greatest ideas come as well? So it's like making space for that and allowing people to really be openly how they need to be in any given moment. Like you say, landing in that soft, loving container. That is so beautiful. I'm happy for your daughter. I look forward to hearing how that goes for her. And that is truly what we need. And I'm hearing more and more of people in the younger generations wanting to shift things. And that's, I think, always been the way. It just feels like it's happening so much faster. Innovation is taking place at a greater speed now. And there's so much more available that can be done especially when people are coming from a place of really wanting to serve. And so with that in mind, like, what differences do you see young mothers encountering now in their parenting journey? Perhaps some of the women that you're working with.
I actually just changed my job description. I write a job description every year, and I changed it I used to be this life and career coach. I was helping executives, and it's kind of flipped a little bit. And I changed it to a life strategy coach. And the reason why I did that with my own career development is because what I found is offering brainstorming sessions, because sometimes our brain knows where that life wants to go. And now we have to find the path of how to organize ourselves and chip away at it in small pieces, so it's not this elephant that you're trying to swallow at one time. And this is a new revelation for me. But when I approach it with life strategy, instead of like, I'm going to fix everything, or I'm going to tell you how it's going to be, when we're looking at our life strategy plan, it amounts to even more possibilities. And my daughter kind of brought me this in something that she learned in her innovation labs. And when you put that out there, people start adding greatness or flowers to it. And I get to meet people like yourself. I get to have conversations that sparks me to think, okay, well, I never thought of it that way. Let me put that in my strategy plan to kind of implement and find more knowledge, be curious, and learn more about that. And I don't know about you, but I was not taught that way in my 20s. And how powerful we could be at this moment if we were taught to be curious and learners, instead of like, this is what we're supposed to be and this is how we're supposed to do it. So again, even in my 50s, I swapped my job description to suit what the innovation plan of now the future looks like. And I'm trying to meet that job description and work towards it. And I think as women and young mothers, I hope that you keep rewriting your job description because it keeps changing and you keep adding benefits to it. It's always benefits because even when we're criticized, constructive criticism, it's learn from that and say, okay, what do I like from that? What am I hearing? Where can I tweak that a little bit to add more value when I teach my child, or I bring occasion or a memory or something that is really important to me. Again, back to that basic to solidify it really, really strong. And then your kids take off and you're like, wow. I think the first time as a mom, when I knew of this parenting as intention, my other daughter, I got sent a letter and it said there was a new child in school in Japan. And my daughter just went up to her, grabbed her hand and said, you need this for this class, this for this class, this for this class. If you need help, come to me. Let me, help you. You don't need to get stressed about the first day and it's all overwhelming. Yes, everything is in Japanese. And get there. And this teacher wrote me a letter about how, without judgment of where this child came from and what they brought into the classroom, she said, let me bring you up to speed of where we're at. And I think I learned that a little bit from the Asian culture is they say, if everyone cleaned their front doorstep, the whole world would be clean.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If we start caring with our community around us first, it starts that ripple effect that we want to happen. And then you see your kids doing things like that. You're like, wow, that was very kind. That was very gracious of you to help this new child. And they surprised you. And I think, again, being reflective, I want to tell new mothers, this is what I know. I know it works because I don't just have one phenomenal human. I have 3 phenomenal humans and they're all in their 20s. They all have the 3 E's, which we joke. I think I told you my neighbor taught me this one, to be educated, employed, and elsewhere. They're there, but they're doing things in their 20s that I learned in my 40s and now my 50s. And I think that's the credit we have to give them as young mothers. You need to be kind to yourself, but at the same time, know that your mark as a mother is very impressionable. That's what they're taking out. They're representing you, your best versions of you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. That is so good. So as you're working with your clients and helping them to overcome like some of these types of obstacles and the seeing where they fit and rewriting their job description and deciding, well, what's next and how do I approach it? What is your framework or what is your go-to method that you help them overcome things with? Like, is there a place that you begin typically, or is it different for everyone you work with?
It's a little bit different for depending on what the situation is, where they're coming from. But there are some basics that I look at too. I mean, I really develop that life purpose statement. What makes you tick? I am X that does Y. So we hash that, I form it, I take it clay and we keep meshing with it and I work with it. And I want that motto to be stuck in your head because the more you believe in yourself, the more you will portray that out to others. And it's attractive. It's very attractive when you know your life purpose. So I always start with my clients strategizing and working on that. I have a series of assessments. We work through those things. And then the next thing I jump to is who are our allies to achieve that with intention, our life purpose statement, because you cannot do everything alone. I know single mothers have to depend on caregivers. I know fathers that work that need the mother. I need the mother who works needs the father. I just met a group of mothers that they were all single and they all had children and they financially were not making it. They created this house called Siren House. They bought a house. One mother lived in the attic, one lived in the top floor, one lived in the middle, and one lived in the basement. And they shared child rearing, food. That is so different and out of the box, yet they're doing it.
It's amazing.
And yeah. And I'm like, wow. So that's the support network. And you have to kind of look to the allies that are going to fuel your life purpose. And who are those? And then we kind of evaluate. I call them saboteurs. I call them the people that bring you down, and identify them so that you can push those into the corner a little bit. I find those 3 exercises a staple with every client that I do, so that they are approached with things and they're able to say, first of all, this is me. I feel like that song from Hugh Jackman, this is me.
I love that song. It's on repeat.
Yeah. So I think those are kind of my 3 basics. And then it just depends on my client and where they're working. Because, some men or women have very specific goals that they want to achieve that I help with them to work towards. Some have no clue at whatsoever, and we narrow it down on what could be more fulfilling for them. And then others, there's an area of their life that it just keeps coming back again, and they need somebody to kind of change the perspective of how they're going to attack a problem. And I'm privileged. I can say honestly that every single one of my clients surprises me every single time. Like, I assume they're going to do X, and they take it 10, 20 times further. And it's just because of the possibilities. And that's where I think the reflection of looking what I provided with my kids, I'm now providing to my clients, is that space to get creative and be curious and learn about yourself, and then be accountable for it. And that's kind of where we miss a little bit in the coaching industry that I love now, is the accountability piece. As moms, we're really good at putting our thumbs on things and saying, okay, you do that homework, or finish your dinner, or, if you started a team, you've got to finish that team of the season, even though you don't like that sport. I think that as moms, we come naturally into that accountability piece. And so it's that's the fun part for me, is just to see the growth that happens with my clients.
And they find themselves wanting to really show up for themselves and to show up for that commitment that they made. There's something so powerful about making that commitment in front of someone to themselves, because it's really a commitment to them, but it almost feels like it's a commitment to someone else when someone else is brought into it. And so that's an incredible, real power of coaching that I have found as well.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think you and I both, even with your podcast, you talk about this, this healthiness, and it is that mind, body, and spirit. If you take care of the body, fantastic. But if you're not working on this mind, or where your spirit's going, and again, we did not have this tool in our 20s. It was not something that we thought about, or we even brought to the table. It was kind of like, ooh, I'm feeling this. Well, shove that under the table and don't identify it. You need to work through that on your own, in your own space. And nobody gave you those tools. And I think that's the privilege. Interview a couple coaches, find who fits with you and your personality, because there's a lot of amazing coaches, and they all have different techniques and tactics that can assist you and align with you. But make sure you interview a bunch of them, because I think that's really important. We don't say that enough as coaches either, because I know if they've come to me, that spiritual side will also be a part of it. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had people come to me, and I realize in terms of finding a fit, I've indicated, actually, I know someone who would be incredible for you to work with. It would be a better match for you. And I love to do that. I love to connect people to really who they are, but also connect them to other people in whatever regard that may be. And that may even be in finding another coach that is more appropriate for their stage of growth, for where they want to go. It's kind of like, when you're looking for a specialist for some kind of health condition, you want to go to someone who's really going to hear you, who's going to resonate, and who can take you to that next step and really guide you with a lot of empathy and encouragement, and a track record as well. Like, that's so important. So I love that you said that. So I want to talk about your book a little bit.
Okay.
And the main focus of your book, you had talked about, is really in that reflection and is in those lessons. And I would love if you would share, what is one of your top 3 favorite anecdotes or stories that you might be able to share a bit about?
Okay. Well, I want to go with the kind of fun story that you could read about it a little bit more, but it's don't always assume you know. And that is kind of the basics of this story. And I tell a story how I got caught up in my mom duties. I was rushing to my annual gynecology appointment, and the gynecologist said to me some questions that didn't land right with me. And I was like, he's making me feel a little creepy, yet he's very professional. Lo and behold, I go down the storyline, and my daughter comes into the kitchen that evening crying because we would go back to the United States and get all of these crafts and materials that were hard to find when we were living abroad. And one of them was rainbow glitter. And she was saving rainbow glitter in a special white washcloth. And before I went to the doctor's office, obviously, I took out a washcloth and decided to clean up before I went to that doctor's appointment. So I go back to that piece of advice and say, I was going into it with the mindset that this gentleman, my doctor, was creepy, but yet professional. He was in the mindset, obviously, like, wow, this lady has a rainbow hoo-ha. She decorated it with a lot of glitter for me. And so then I ask a question of like, how do you show up when you're feeling uncomfortable? And it's don't always assume you know all the facts. Get curious, ask more questions, because if I had inquired why he was asking some of these things, it would have solidified myself of not being so uncomfortable. And so that is probably one of my favorite advice stories in this book. And it goes through and it tells you the journey I went through with that one.
That is the best story ever. Oh my goodness. Yes. And you, not only would you have been clarifying why he was asking you those questions, the two of you probably would have ended up having a hilarious laugh too. But wow, this is great. Oh yes. Never assume.
Yeah. And I wrote that piece of advice because I also want mothers to realize if I can express and be vulnerable with you out in the world and let you hear some of the things where I didn't do the greatest job as a mom, you realize that there's no magic formula. There is no perfect glitter hoo-ha. There's no, it's going to happen. Things are going to happen. And it's how you deal with what you learned on the next time, or how you talk about a gynecology appointment to your own daughters when they're going for the first time. I think it sparks you to say, this happened to me. And to have a little bit of humbleness, that you realize that it's going to be okay, regardless of what happens. Another beautiful story that I have is in that book is I talk about an important foundation piece for me. A basic foundation piece was that my children learn how to volunteer. My father taught that to me, and I wanted my children to do that. I did not realize when I put them in situations and exposed them to things, how they would react. And I tell a story about how my son went to a retirement facility, and he was working volunteer hours that he needed for school. And there was a lady there that obviously had a skin condition and hadn't been touched, hadn't been able to have conversations. And even though my son was kind of teased by the friends that were also volunteering, how he had the ability to step back and say, this lady was lonely. And within that story of volunteering, she was the bride to a World War II veteran, and my son got a plethora of history knowledge that he would have never learned had he not opened himself up to that experience. And so that's another story I talk about. Like, you go into these volunteering experiences thinking that you're going to like save the world and change something. But yet, if you go into it with this magic of what is the gift that they're going to give me back from just being there and being present to what is an opportunity, it changes volunteering. So with that, I explained that my kids like busted it out of the water. I mean, my daughter started a college organization because she's fluent in several languages, and one of them is Spanish. And she saw that things were happening in the neighborhood around her. It was South LA, and some of these individuals didn't speak English. So she brought the police organization, the schools, and taught these people how to petition so that their neighborhood was protected for the things that were important to them without losing who they were. If the bikes that you pay and you can ride around in. Well, the city bikes, they had stuck them right in front of an individual's convenience store, and he didn't speak any English. And that was where his customers used to park. And instead of getting angry, he was taught how to write a petition and figure out how to move that so that this business could survive and he could survive. And she united police and she united people. So if we're given that opportunity to show them volunteering is important, but help to be the bridge of translation on how it can be, information can be shared without harsh and criticism, like they're not doing this, or the police aren't helping me, or how our community can change. And now that organization is thriving. It's called UPAC in South LA. And the hairdresser is involved in it, and the bakery owner and the liquor store owner. I mean, they're all in it with the LAPD and the mayor. And my daughter just brought it to the table. And I'm like, how did that happen? And she said, Mom, because I learned to volunteer and I helped translate information. That's all I did, was bring translation together. And now other students are being those translators because it adds value.
Love it.
So all these stories in the book are just these little pieces of advice of what I did. And I don't want moms to be judgmental of themselves. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing. Every morning you wake up, you have an opportunity to try something different. That's where I say life strategy. Like, if it's important to you, you will make it happen. So if, showing your kids compassion, getting them out there and working in a soup kitchen or picking up trash or something and talking about what that provides to your community, you will make that happen. You will provide that strategy in your life for your kids. And that's what the book's premise is just to give you a short story, tell you my piece of advice, and then I prompt you to write in it. And I was told as a child, don't write in books, but I want you to write in my book. And I want you to document what's important to you, because I guarantee you now my kids at 20, they're looking at my responses and they're reading what I'm doing. And you are the greatest advocate of how you want your kids to turn out.
Ooh, yeah, that is so good. Mm-hmm. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so remarkable. And it's amazing how it starts in your home and it starts with your neighbors and on your street, and then it expands. And for some people, expand really, really far. Some people will just remain within their small community. And that is beautiful, because that is how we feel safe and secure and loved in the places where we live. Everybody deserves to feel that way when they go home, to be able to talk to their neighbors and share a kind word and help each other out with no thought of return. That is something that can only really be modeled, because we can talk about it, but if it's not actually being done, then nobody's going to pick up that torch to keep it going. So obviously these things have happened because they've been modeled. That is so incredibly beautiful.
And when it happens is also just championing that. If you see it in your child's friend doing something with compassion, or recognize that. And instead of I think I look at how social media kind of makes a judgment call or whatever. If we are louder than those judgment calls, and if we are proclaiming or connecting children to other connectors, saying, you have a skill set that is amazing in X. You should talk to this person. Or we're changing the projection of how social media affects our kids. You're changing how they process the bully. You change what's important. I mean, I didn't write the story in a book, but it was really interesting. We had lived in a Latin American country, and there was a bus stop, and there was a bully, and my son looked like the proverbial Harry Potter. He had the glasses, I mean, he had that total look. And this kid came up and said quite a snide remark to my son, but he made it about me. Like, I won't go into it, but it was like, I was with your mother kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he's not big. I mean, he's a triathlete now, and he's just skinny and runs and runs and runs and runs. But he's this little tiny thing and this big bully. And he turns and he looks at him, and I'm kind of far across the room. And I'm like, how is he going to handle this situation? He turns to the bully and he said, "You could have said anything to me that would have hurt me, but you took on my mom. And that's just kind of sad. And it's really funny because she would eat you up." And so he was able to kind of reflect this in a way of, that's my powerhouse. And you just kind of like went after a powerhouse that just makes me laugh at you. And so, of course, I had to walk over and I'm like, "Oh, so you and I know each other." Of course, and I say that in a kind way, that this boy now and my son are still friends in their adult life, because he was able to contain it, frame it as, you could have come at me with anything else. And I'm not saying that that's always the case with a bully.
Right.
But if your child has the confidence to say, "That's not how I'm going to respond to you. You don't get that power over my life," that's where they can control against some of the things that are coming at them right now that are not good. And I feel for them, because it is a hard way to grow up right now. They have so much coming at them.
Yes.
But I encourage you as parents, have those conversations with them, because it will serve them well when they need it. And I have, of my 3 children, I have 7 other nieces and nephews. So 10 total of my mother's grandchildren. Each one of them are different. And I look at all of their great traits. And that's how I think you should look at all of your kids is what are they doing well?
Yes.
Because we can all nitpick on everything of each other. And I think that is a gift that we can kind of keep pushing out as moms into the world is, we're not taking this. We're changing the dynamic. We're making the equation different.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is beautiful. And if we carry that out then into adulthood and beyond, if everyone were to treat each other with that form of respect, because everybody's got a light inside of them, everybody's got gifts, everybody's got something special. And we need to really focus on that, because it's true. The world likes to focus on the things that are dark and the things that are, something that can be picked upon. And so much goodness happens when we see the light in each other. This book sounds amazing. I am so thrilled that you came to share about it. And I also would love to know, where can people get this book? How can they follow you? What are you excited about? What's coming up for you next?
The book is sold on Amazon, so you can go as your Amazon Prime members, or you can order it. Go to my webpage, juliannebosch.com, and you can order it straight from there. What's coming next is, I didn't want to stop there with my advice. And because of the privilege that I've been given to live all over the world, I interviewed moms all over the world. And I took those women's stories and their advice, and I put them into a book too. And it's called How She Took Her First Step on the Moon. And it's bringing everybody to the table about whether it's a Japanese mom and how she deals with something, or an Australian mom and how she deals with something, or a mom in the Netherlands deals with something. I want you to hear that this globe is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think if we can kind of seek out that we're all kind of dealing with this on whatever continent that we're in, it will make you realize like, wow, I've experienced that too, yet she's all the way over in Japan, an ocean across from me. And so that is coming out hopefully by my 51st birthday, which is coming in the spring of next year. So we're kind of formulating that right now with my editor, and that will also be out on Amazon. So that's the project that I'm working on. And like I said, I'm working with my clients. So it's fun. It makes me meet new, amazing podcast people like yourself. So.
Well, I'm grateful that you came to share about it, and I'm excited about this next book as well. And I just want to end up by saying, I wish you all the best as you are writing it, putting it together, and sharing this beautiful light that you have, that you're bringing into the world with your clients so that it can ripple out to so many others. It's really wonderful to witness your work.
Thank you so much.
One last question. What's your favorite form of self-care right now? Like, what is lighting you up so much that is helping you serve from a higher place?
I will have to tell you, I learned this in Japan, and it's foot reflexology. I am such a believer in it. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. When I'm feeling low, I go and I get the 20 minutes, 30 minutes just to kind of reframe and get everything back to the way it was. That has been my saving grace for kind of body. For my spirituality, I walk on the beach and I watch the sunrise in the morning.
Lovely.
And then I treat myself every so often to really fine dark chocolate. When it's been a great day, that I just say to myself, it's a treat, because that is like the divine thing for me. I'm not a big cakes or cookies or anything, but when it's a really, really nice dark chocolate. And those are just some things for me that kind of keep me stabilized sometimes when I'm feeling a little off. Like I just need a little self-care.
I love that. Yes, chocolate is very good. I'm very much into cacao right now, doing cacao smoothies. So yes, chocolate all the way. So good. Well, I just want to say it was such a pleasure. I look forward to seeing where your travels take you next as well. And, all the best as you launch out into this next phase of life.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on. I love listening to your podcast because it just adds kind of a new perspective for moms of gentleness. And so thank you for adding that out into the world, because I think it's also a ripple effect.
Oh, thank you. And I also want to say a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Julianne and I would love to know how this conversation landed with you. Please let us know by sending us a DM or sharing this episode in your stories. And you can find links to reach Julianne and myself in the show notes. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Big blessings. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Connect podcast. If you like this episode, please share it with someone you think would enjoy it. Also, if you head over to iTunes to leave a review, I'd be so grateful. Let us know what your favorite parts were and what you'd like to hear more of. It will help us have a greater impact, elevating many more people to grow and succeed together. See you next time.